By the way, welcome to the show. Our special guest has won 2 Grammys, one for Everything is Beautiful and one for the bluegrass version of Misty. He's won 9 Music City News Awards for Comedian of the Year. He's sold millions of records and 5 million videos. In 1980, he went into the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ray Stevens. Raymond, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here. Hello, check. Yes, we're on. It's a real honor to be here. Thank you.
Now, we have a lot to do, so I'm going to get right to it, okay?
Sure.
And I'm going to cue the video people because I'm going to play a little video that represents probably the first time you ever heard of Ray Stevens.
Let me tell you about Ahab the Arab, the sheik of the burning sand. They had emeralds and rubies just dripping off of him, had a ring on every finger of his hand. He wore a big old turban wrapped around his head, scimitar by his side. And every evening about midnight he'd jump on his camel named Clyde and ride silently through the night to the Sultan's tent, where he'd secretly meet with Fatima of the 7 Veils, swinging his grade A #1 U.S. choice government inspected dancer in the Sultan's whole harem, cause him and her had a thing going, yeah. And they'd been carrying on for some time now behind the Sultan's back, and you could hear him talk to his camel as he rode out across the dunes. His voice would cut through the still night desert air, and he'd say, which is Aramaic for whoa, baby. And Clyde say, well, he brought that camel to a screeching halt in the rear of Fatima's tent. Jumped off Clyde, snuck around the corner, into the tent he went.
Thank you.
That was 1962, and Ray, while you had that record out, you did the record hops and all of that sort of thing, and you went to the Buddy Dean show in Baltimore, Maryland, a very hot show up there, and what happened there?
Well, they had a camel. Actually, they took the show to the zoo where they had a camel, and I got to stand real close to the camel. The sound on the record, I made that up. I had no idea what a camel really sounded like. And I can't even do it anymore, but I was just faking it on the session, and the camel made that noise. And I was flabbergasted at that, you know, because I had no idea that they really sounded like that.
So you were shocked when you met the camel?
Yeah, yeah.
How was his breath?
Oh, it was bad. I met another camel on the beach in Melbourne, Australia once. The news people thought that would be cute, and they made me ride him, and he would turn his head around and try to bite me, you know. I'm not thrilled with camels, I'll tell you that.
I guess he hadn't heard the record or looked at the charts. Now, you have 2 birthdays. In fact, your actual birthday, January 24th, 1939.
Right.
Ray Ragsdale was born. That's
Harold Ray Ragsdale, yes.
The second birthday occurred when your producer, Ken Nelson, named you Ray Stevens. Why did he do that?
He didn't like the name Ragsdale. And I said, what's wrong with it? He said, well, I read a book about a dog named Rags, and it just doesn't sound like somebody that would make records. And I said, well, if you change my name, you're going to make my mama mad. And he said, well, what's your mother's maiden name? I said, Stevens. He said, that's a good name, Ray Stevens. I said, well, you're going to make my dad mad. He said, well, we can't make everybody happy. Do you want to make a record or not? I said, yes, sir. I'll whatever. So,
Do you happen to know what Ray Stevens' birthday is?
you know, you're speaking of the date that I...
That you became Ray Stevens?
Yeah, it was here at RCA Studios in Nashville, and I don't know the date. Sometime in 57.
Okay.
1957.
Fall, spring?
I don't know.
You know, Manny Pearl once told me that she had two identities. She said when she was in costume, she could look at Manny as another person. Do you feel like you have two identities?
No.
Yeah.
I just changed my name. That's it. You know, I mean, I'm not schizophrenic, if that's
how
what
do you
you...
sign How do you sign the checks?
Ray Stevens.
So did you go to court to become Ray Stevens?
Not really. No, I didn't. I changed my name on my driver's license, too, because for a long time, these days, some of the police do not know me. But back in those days, they knew me. And I showed them my Ragsdale driver's license, and they'd say, that's not your name, you know. And so I had that changed with the state of Tennessee to Ray Stevens, and so that I wouldn't get hassled every time I got stopped by the police. I did drive a little fast in years gone by. I'll admit that. I don't do that anymore. But anyway.
Okay. Your parents, Willis Harold and Francis Stephen Ragsdale, they're, by the way, we're trying to sell this book today. And I know that you had great love for your daddy back in Clark, well, your mama too, but in Clarkdale, and it's not Clarksdale. When I first met you, I thought it was Clarksdale.
Everybody does, but it's no S.
It's Clarkdale. And you talked fondly about your father playing baseball.
Yeah.
And he was on a baseball team, wasn't he?
Well, back in those days, this was a cotton mill town. And back in those days, all the small communities in Georgia had baseball teams. I mean, that was a big deal. And it was very important, I think, psychologically for people to have something like that they could be a part of. And it was good for morale, to be honest. You know, there was no television. There was only radio. And heck, nobody even had air conditioning. And, you know, it was a lot simpler time. And the baseball team was just great. It was a lot of fun. And
so did it represent the place where your father was employed?
yeah. Clark Thread Company.
So did they go to other towns in Georgia?
Sure, yeah. There was a whole league, I guess you could say.
What position did your father play?
He played mainly third base.
Did this start to your life make you want to be a ball player?
Oh, yeah. You know, when I was a little kid, I thought, hey, that's what I want to do, play baseball. I didn't know I was going to grow to be 150 pounds tops, you know. But you had to. I learned later that you have to be a little bigger to excel in a sport like baseball than I was. So.
And you also you paid tribute to another ball player that your father's.
Well, my dad's best friend, yeah, Willie Colson was his name. He was a catcher, and they hung out together. And our families were friends.
Your mama, on the other hand, she put the quietus to baseball, didn't she?
Well,
she introduced you to the piano.
Yeah, she thought that I should learn to play the piano, and started me taking lessons when I was 6.
And she was pretty adamant about that, wasn't she?
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't go out and play baseball.
Well, after practicing 1 hour every day, I could go play baseball
What
with the
time?
other kids. Well, you know, it was usually in the afternoon.
And if you couldn't.
In the wintertime after school.
Did you have a piano teacher?
Yeah.
What time did the piano teacher come?
Well, I went to her, and she was in the neighboring town, and like once a week or something like that.
So aren't you glad your mama stuck to her guns?
Yeah, I guess so.
You know, there is a chapter in this book that would have made a great title for the book, and that's Piano Player in a Guitar Town.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
There's a picture in the book. There's a section of pictures in the back, and I find it fascinating that you are pictured here with a big rubber ball.
Well, you know, photographers have historically had things for babies to hold, you know, to keep them calm, I guess.
What's on the rubber ball?
A camel, and I had, you know, there you go, yeah. And at the time, who knew? I don't think it was subconscious, but later when my first hit was Ahab the Arab with Clyde the Camel featured in that song, I needed a logo. And so I said, well, let's just do a camel with a circle around it. And that's been my logo ever since, somewhere around 62, I guess. And later I discovered this old picture with the camel, the most prominent animal on the ball, and kind of prophetic, I guess
You
you
know
could say.
who bought the ball?
No, it belonged to the photographer.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, yeah.
He had no idea, did he?
Well, I guess not. You know, I don't. There are probably a lot of other kids that took pictures with that ball, and
Yeah, you moved around a lot. From Clarkdale, you moved to Albany, Georgia.
Albany.
Well, I was going to say, what do they call it down there?
Down there, it's Albany.
And
Albany.
Why did you move?
Clark Thread Company had a mill down there, and they transferred my dad.
Did you get a promotion?
I don't know.
Well, now, did he also?
He might have.
Did he also play baseball for Albany?
Yes.
So they had a team too.
The Thread Company had a team, yeah.
How long did you live in Albany?
10 years.
Were you living in Albany where you got the idea for Sergeant Preston?
No, I lived in Albany 7 years. Was I? No, I had moved back to Atlanta when that idea struck. We were in Albany, though, a bunch of kids. We'd ride around. A friend of mine, had an old truck, panel truck, and it was beat up. And we would ride around some nights to the local hamburger joint, you know. And I forget what we call this van, but I think we call it "On King, On You Great Husky." And this, we go down the road, and I remembered that from those days riding around with a bunch of guys in that old truck. Sergeant Preston had a dog called King.
Well, I think we should explain. Sergeant Preston was one of the great disappointments of your life.
Well, sort of, but I wrote a song. I thought this could be a hit, you know, dog barking and all. And so I wrote it and I cut it, and Bill Lowry's label, NRC, put it out, and it was taken off. It's going to be a hit. And we got a letter from the lawyers of the King Features Syndicate, who owned the character Sergeant Preston, and they said we couldn't do that, so we had to take the record off the market.
Was the record a hit already?
Yeah, it was taken off like a gangbusters, as they used to say.
Okay, how long did you stay in Albany, or Albany?
Well, I left when I was 17.
You moved to Atlanta.
16 maybe. Yeah, moved to Atlanta.
And Atlanta is where you began to turn your life around. You meet Bill Lowry.
Oh man, he was a dynamo. He was a publisher. And he encouraged all the kids around Atlanta to write so he could have something to publish. So he built quite a stable of writers. It was me and Jerry Reed, Joe South, Tommy Rowe. The list goes on and on. And we were fortunate that he had decided to. He started out as a disc jockey, a radio announcer, and he was very successful. He used to announce all the Georgia Tech football games, among other things. And he got a little cancer, and the insurance companies didn't want to cover him with health insurance. So a friend of his said, Bill, you need to start a publishing company. That could be your health insurance. And so that's when he decided, yeah, that's a good idea. And
You played in a band there that became, all the members became famous, didn't they?
just about, yeah.
Who was in the band?
Me and Jerry Reed and Joe South and a couple other guys. We were the three, though, that went on to,
Greater glory.
yeah.
Jerry Reed, good guitar player in those days?
Oh, he was always a good guitar player. I first time I saw him play, I thought, wow, I've never seen anybody that good.
Let's describe Bill Lowry the way you did to me the other day. When you first met him, what happened?
Well, I took him this song. I first met him. He said, I want to write some songs for you. He said, well, go make me a demo. And I
How'd
said,
you meet him?
my Sunday school teacher, Warren Roberts, at the Claremont Hills Baptist Church, knew that I was musically inclined. He said, you need to meet Bill Lowry. And I said, who's Bill Lowry? And he said, well, he's a guy starting a publishing company, and you need to meet him. And Warren was in the radio business, too. And so that's how he knew about Bill trying to get started with music publishing. And so I went to see Bill, and he said, write me a song. And I did, and took it to him, and he jumped up and down like a shortstop and said, that's great, that's a smash, you know, write some more. And the next thing I knew, he had called Ken Nelson and played him the song, and we came to Nashville and recorded.
Just like that?
Just like that.
I mean, you didn't have to wait around
No. It was a different time.
and peddle your song,
No,
and beg and plead.
Nobody was, there was no competition back in those days. Nobody had thought of that yet, you know.
What year are we in here? You're
57.
You're a teenager, aren't you?
I'm still in high school. I made my first record. I was 17, still in high school, and it was 1957.
Didn't you come to Nashville to make your first record?
Yes,
It was called Silver Bracelet.
yes.
What kind of song was that?
It's about teenage jewelry, you know, identification bracelet. You put your name, her name on the front, your name on the back.
Was it a hit?
Yeah, in Atlanta.
Well,
Nowhere else.
I saw you on the Dick Clark show with that.
Really?
Yes. That's where I met you,
I don't remember.
backstage at the Dick Clark show.
Then I was singing that song?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know why I don't remember that.
Well, see if you remember this. You met a girl named Penny Jackson. Whatever happened to her?
Well, I married her. She was a friend of mine was Felton Jarvis, and he worked around the studio in Atlanta and wanted to be in the record business so bad. And his wife, Twinkle was her name. She worked at WAOK, a radio station in Atlanta, and her sister was visiting, and that was Penny. And so we became acquainted through Felton, and Felton later became Elvis's producer. That's how fortunate he was. He was a great salesman. He didn't know one note from another, but he knew a hit sound. And Elvis loved him and made him his producer.
Well, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah,
You mentioned in the book that the relationship produced 2 daughters.
that's right.
The names are?
Timmy Lynn and Susie, who's sitting right there.
Are they here? Hi. Who's here? Susie?
Susie, yeah.
Stand up, Susie. Let them take a look at you. Now, I hate to tell all of you people who probably think this guy is a real nice guy, but you did spend some time in jail, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. This was in high school in Atlanta, and this was before I made any recordings. We went down to Panama City.
The spring break?
I don't know. But a friend of mine drank too many beers. I didn't. And broke a pinball machine at a place called The Hangout in Panama City, which was right on the beach, and they called the cops. And they were taking him away, And I said, well, wait, and they said, you get in here too. And I went, oh, why did I open my mouth? But I went and spent the night in the Stout House in Panama City, and they let me out the next day.
Did it teach you anything?
Yes. Don't ever take up for a friend.
All right, we're moving our story right along. Bill Lowry introduced you to a man named Shelby Singleton, and he played a major role in your life.
Yeah, Shelby at that time worked for Mercury Records and was in charge of promotion, I think, in the Southeast. And we would all, I say we, Jerry and me and Joe and all the people in Lowry's stable would work a little show out in East Point, Georgia, which is part of Atlanta, for a radio station every Saturday called the Georgia Jubilee. And, you know, it was a good way to make $50, and you'd go out there and sing 2 or 3 songs, and then they'd bring a big star on. Well, I was out there one Saturday doing the show, and Shelby came in with a new guy, but he had a hit. The hit was called Chantilly Lace, and he came in with the Big Bopper, J.P. Richardson, and I met Shelby out there, and he saw me perform out there. And so the next thing you know, he was calling Bill, and Shelby had been promoted to the A&R department, and he was in charge of all the artist and repertoire for Mercury in Nashville. And he needed help. He had some great help. Jerry Kennedy was his assistant. He needed another assistant, and he asked Bill, would I be available? And Bill said, well, certainly. And so he said, why don't you call Shelby? And I did. And he said, why don't you move up here? I said, well, great. How much money will I make? He says, $50 a week. I said, Shelby, can't live on $50 a week.
You had a wife and child, didn't you?
Yeah. And he said, well, and you can play on all the sessions. And I went, oh.
How did that
I'll
work?
be right there.
How did that work out?
Well, it worked out pretty good. You know, sessions back in those days were just 3 a day every day.
What did they pay?
$50, $51.25.
So you could make $150 a day.
Yeah, if you played on all the sessions. And I played on most of it.
Well, I think it's fair to say you became one of Nashville's most provocative instrumentalists on all the sessions.
Well, I don't know about provocative, but I played on a lot of sessions.
Well, and you played a lot of instruments.
Yeah, you know, I have the theory that whatever it takes, you know, to get to 51.25, I'm going to do it.
There's an interesting story about an Elvis record. You and Charlie McCoy.
Yeah.
What happened?
Charlie has the same idea about sessions that I do, and Elvis needed twin trumpets. And say no more. Charlie and I had trumpets in
Were
the
they going to
trunks of
send
our...
out? Were they going to send out for a trumpet player?
I don't know what they were going to do, but we jumped in and said, we can play those. And Felton was the producer, my brother-in-law, so he said, well, go get them and let's do it.
Where was the trumpet? You didn't carry it around.
It was in the car. Yeah, I carried it in the car.
And so did Charlie?
Yeah, sure.
So which record was that?
I don't know. I don't know. We can look it up. They know on the internet. They know everything on the internet. We can look it up.
Were you part of what was then blossoming as the Nashville sound?
I think so. Yeah. I'm proud to say I think I was a small part of that.
How did you meet Chet Atkins?
Well, he hired me to do some sessions as a musician, and first time I met him, though, I was up here with Lowry recording something at RCA with Jerry Reed. We were playing on some record for the Techniques, which was a quartet that went to Georgia Tech. And they had a hit called Hey Little Girl. Anyway, we were up playing on their session, and Chet came by the studio, and I met him there.
Now, I should double back and tell you that when Shelby hired you, he hired you not only to play on sessions, but also to produce records.
Yeah. Well, I was assistant A&R. I was in the A&R department.
Right.
But I didn't produce very many records, but I produced a few.
Well, let's go back to that first record we played, Ahab the Arab. What happened that day when you cut that?
We had that session somewhere January 20th or something like that. The night before, I had written the song, Ahab the Arab. I had material that I did not like. And in just blind panic desperation, I wrote Ahab the Arab the night before the session.
Why?
Because I didn't like what I had.
I know, but what prompted that song?
Well, I had read a book as a kid called Arabian Nights. And I kind of liked the idea of Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves and all that, you know. And so I thought, this could be something because I'll make that camel sound, and the dog sound was going to be a hit before it got jerked with Sergeant Preston. So I thought, well, maybe animal sounds is my calling. So I wrote the song the night before. Anyway, we cut that at 10 o'clock, and at 2 o'clock, we cut Leroy Van Dyke's Walk On By, and at 6 o'clock, we cut Wooden Heart with Joe Dowell, and all three records were pretty big records.
Yeah, number one.
In one day, we cut 3 hits. I don't know if we all went to
I
number
think they
one.
all did. They were all big-time records. You moved, but you moved away, and I thought this was kind of strange in the book. You moved away from Shelby and moved to Fred Foster.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know.
Now, Fred Foster was a guy who had Monument Records.
Yeah.
What did he have out there?
Oh, Roy Orbison and Boots Randolph. And, oh, I know what the deal was. He wanted to sign me as an artist. And there was no ill will with Shelby or anything. I just, Fred wanted me to produce records for Monument as well as be an artist. And the first artist he gave me to produce was Dolly Parton.
Wow.
You know, I
What'd
didn't
you
cut a
think?
hit with her, but boy, we tried.
Yeah. What did you think of Dolly Parton?
Oh, I thought she was gorgeous and very talented. You know?
You think she could sing?
Yeah, sure.
Did she record Happy Birthday Baby?
I recorded that with her. Happy birthday, baby.
There was more to it.
Oh yeah, but I'm not gonna sing other people's records.
Who else did you produce?
Jim Glazer, one of the Glazer brothers. He did a solo.
Didn't they have Willie at that time?
He could have. I didn't produce Willie.
Okay.
I didn't record with Willie. Later, he had Boots, and later I produced Boots. He wasn't on Monument anymore, but we got together and made a double album for television. What was I going to say? I forgot.
Well, we kind of left Chet in the wind. You and Chet became good friends and business partners, didn't you?
Yeah, you know, I looked around at the guys that were responsible for Nashville, and two of the biggest guys were Chet Atkins and Owen Bradley. And of course there was Shelby and Fred Foster and, you know, several others. But I looked at what they did, how they invested their money, and they bought real estate in the Music Row area as an investment. And so I thought, yeah, that's a good idea. So I bought a few houses, and then the opportunity would come up when something would come on the market. Chet would call me, or I'd call him and say, you want to go in halvesies on this? And we did. We bought several old houses together and kind of fixed them up and rented them out, awaiting the day when everything would, you know, really
Take off
and we could sell them for a lot of money.
All right, I've moved along in your record catalog, and I find that your next big hit is 1969's Guitarzan. Where'd you get the idea for this?
Bill Justice gave me the title. He was a great musician, great arranger. He had one hit back in the 60s called Raunchy. It was an instrumental. Bill was a sax player. And, but he was a great arranger. He used to score movies. I mean, you know, he was really good. And I learned a lot about arranging from him. But I was in LA once doing something, I don't know what. And I was staying at the Continental Hotel, which was Gene Autry's hotel on Sunset Boulevard there. And there were apartments across the street where Bill had rented an apartment and he was scoring this movie. And so we came over, we had breakfast one morning, and he said, I've got a great idea for a song, you need to write it. And I said, what is it? And he said, Guitars and, man. And I said, okay. So.
You think that the idea was good?
Oh, I thought the idea was great, you know. And I got home, and it's funny, that's the first song I ever wrote with a rhyming dictionary. I didn't know a rhyming dictionary existed, but there's always been one out there for years called the Clement C. Wood Rhyming Dictionary, and it takes every word and rhyme, and all the rhymes. And so I wrote Guitarzan out of a rhyming dictionary, just for fun.
What does Guitarzan rhyme with?
The Jungle Band, I guess. Guitar Man, Guitarzan, whatever. But the verses I would write, I'd pick a word and rhyme it until I ran out of rhymes, and then I'd change chords, excuse me, and do the same thing again. And it worked out pretty good.
1969.
Yeah.
Let's go for a little bit of Guitarzan. You might remember this.
He's free as a breeze, he's always at ease. He lives in the jungle, hangs by his knees, and swings through the trees without a trapeze in his BVDs. He got a union card and he's practicing hard to play the guitar. Gonna be a big star, yeah, it's gonna go far. Carry moonbeams home in a jar. He ordered Chet's guitar course, COD, makes A, E, working on B, digs C and W and R and B, and me and the chimpanzee agree that one day soon he'll be a celebrity. Get it, get it, get it, get it. Oh, Guitarzan, he's a guitar man. He's all you can stand. Give him a hand, Guitarzan.
Now, I want to introduce somebody in the audience who I wondered for a long time who was wearing the monkey suit. Turns out you have a little brother.
Well, he's not so little, he's bigger than me. He could have played baseball, but no.
John, stand up. And this is John Ragsdale. John is visiting us today from Panama, where he resides.
Well, sort of resides. I mean, he's still got a place here, too, in Nashville. Right, John? You still got a Tennessee driver's license? Okay.
I ran across something this morning going back through your material. Do you remember a song called Booger Man?
Yeah.
How did it go?
I don't remember the way it went, but I remember.
Why did you write a
Buddy
song?
wrote that.
Huh?
Didn't you write Booger Man, Buddy? Yeah.
I thought Booger Man was part of your youth. Were you afraid of the Booger Man?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we had we were warned about Soap Sally. You ever hear of Soap Sally?
No.
Anybody? Well, she's an old lady who lived out in the woods, and if you went too far into the woods, she'd grab you and make soap out of you.
I've never heard that one.
Yeah.
Well, we ought to identify Buddy. Who's Buddy Cab?
He's right there. He's been my friend since we were both writing for Lowry back in the 50s, and still in high school, and he and I still work together.
He also performed as Buddy K, didn't he?
Big Buddy K.
Big Buddy K.
Yeah.
Big Buddy K, stand up there.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at you.
And if it weren't for Buddy, this book would not be here, I'll tell you that right now.
Did he put this together?
Well, he certainly was the driving force
You know, in the back of this book,
to get it all assembled.
in the back of this book is a list of songs that you have recorded, I suppose. I Saw Elvis in a UFO.
Yeah.
Interesting. You did Ode to Billy Joe, didn't you? Or
No.
did you?
No.
It's in the book.
Well, just because it's in the book doesn't mean I recorded it. It just means that it was mentioned in the text
I
of the
see.
book.
I see. Okay.
I think the reference there was, we were talking about, I was talking about sessions that were happy accidents, and the girl that recorded that and wrote it, what was her name?
Bobby Gentry.
Bobby Gentry, yeah. She made a deal with the producer. She was singing background on the session, and she said, I'll come and do the session if you'll give me any time you have left over. I want to do a demo. And so she got her guitar and a couple of mics and cut Ode to Billy Joe in 15 minutes.
And that's what you heard on the record,
And
wasn't
they put strings on it, and that was it. And that was a big hit.
it? Monster record.
Yeah. But that just shows you how things work sometimes, or used to. I don't know if they work that way anymore.
Now, you met a guy along the way named Don Williams, and he had a nice pedigree, didn't he?
Oh, yeah, he was one of the Williams brothers, Andy Williams' brother, and they had been in show business since they were the Osmonds, you know. They were little kids. And he knew a lot about what was going on in performing, you know.
And he became your manager.
Yeah.
And through him, you met his brother.
Yes. Roger Miller was a friend of mine, and he was managed by Don Williams. And he told Don, you ought to look up Ray Stevens and manage him. He needs a manager. And so Don called me, and after a couple of meetings, we said, yeah, okay, fine.
Nice man.
Yes.
I got to know him. I think one of the most important things in the book, the biggest break you had, was your summer replacement show for Andy Williams. Tell me that story.
Well, that was 1970. And I left Monument to go to Barnaby, which was Andy's new label. You might think, never heard of Barnaby Records, but it was distributed by Columbia. So it had all the clout you could ever want as far as ways to sell records. And part of the deal was I would host the Andy Williams Summer Show that year. And they let me know that I could, if I could come up with a good enough song, it would be the theme song for the summer show on NBC. So, oh boy, I chained myself to the piano in the basement of the house here we were living in for 3 days and wrote Everything Is Beautiful. And that was the first release on Barnaby, and it did become the theme song for the television show.
But this gave you great national exposure, the television show.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You were the host. Who was on the show with you?
Everybody. Steve Martin was on the show, and he was one of the writers of the show. Mama Cass. I don't know. We had a lot of guests. Jonathan Winters.
Where'd you shoot the show?
We shot it in Toronto, in Canada.
That was because it was cheaper?
Yes.
Well, I mean,
But we didn't
a lot of people
any
shoot in
quality.
Canada because it's cheaper.
It was great. I mean, everybody was really professional. They knew what to do.
Let's talk about Everything. Everything Is Beautiful. That's you won a Grammy for that.
Yeah.
Tell me about that song.
Well, like I say, I just wouldn't take no for an answer. And finally it hit me. Everything's Beautiful. And I wrote the song. And I thought at the time that it had a shot at being a big hit. And so I went in the studio with an engineer here in town that I was working with, Charlie Talent. And Charlie was engineer for Jack Clement. Jack had just built a new studio out on Belmont Avenue. And we got in there and cut this thing. And I thought, you know, Jesus Loves the Little Children, a group of kids singing that spliced on the front of this would really set it up. So Susie was, and her sister, Timmy, were in school at Oak Hill, out on Franklin Road. And so Charlie and I took a little tape recorder and a mic and went out there and called the teacher, of course, and she got them all in the lunchroom or someplace out there. And the teacher played the piano, and they knew the song. I mean, you know, this is a school run by the Presbyterian Church. And Jesus Loves the Little Children, and we spliced that on the front of Everything is Beautiful, overdubbed a string chord over the splice. Whew, it was magic.
All right, now before you made the record, did the orchestra on the Ray Stevens Summer Replacement show, did they play that as the theme?
Yeah, I mean, it was recorded, you know, all kinds of different ways, you know. Mike Post was the band leader, I think, on that show. And he's really great.
Okay, I don't want to leave that just yet because I think it was a big break for you. What happened to you as the result of starring on that show? Everything changed?
Quite a bit, yeah. You know, I'd work a lot more concerts, a lot more shows. I worked with symphonies and casinos in Vegas and things like that.
Everybody began to really know who Ray Stevens was as a result of that show. And in combination with Everything is Beautiful, which became a #1 record. And I'm going to play a little bit, we've got a recording of that. We're going to play a little bit of it, and I'll come back to you.
Okay.
Jesus loves the little children, all the children of the world. Red and yellow, black and white, they are precious in His sight. Jesus loves the little children of the world.
Everything is beautiful in its own way, like a starry summer night or a snow-covered winter's day. And everybody's beautiful in their own way. Under God's heaven, the world's gonna find a way.
And we've got the piano here. Do a little bit of that live.
What's that?
Everything is Beautiful.
Everything is beautiful in its own way, like a starry summer night on a snow-covered winter's day. Everybody's beautiful in their own way. Under God's heaven, the world's gonna find a way.
1974, excuse me, you were on 1974, you're on an airplane, and you're kind of bored, and you're going through the material on the airplane. And at the time, there was a strange thing going on in our society called streaking. Taking your clothes off, and running through traffic, running through crowds. As a matter of fact, it even happened at the Academy Awards. Anyway, why did you write this song?
I had no idea streaking was going on, and it was Newsweek magazine or one of those weeklies. And in the back, they have these little blurbs about first one thing, then another that have occurred the previous week. One of the little articles about that tall was about a college student in California took off his clothes, ran through a crowd, and they called it streaking. And I went, whoa, there's an idea. So I got home, and I was flying from LA to Nashville, and I got home and I wrote the song. And first thing you know, everything on the news, Walter Cronkite was signing off with something about streaking, you know, and so I ran in the studio, and I had just built a new studio. In 1970, I built a studio on Grand Avenue. All the bells and whistles, spent all the money I had, you know, and couldn't get arrested with a hit in there. So the little house across the street was for sale for $20,000. And so I thought, well, I'll just buy that, put a little studio in there. So I bought it and put a little studio real cheap, just baling wire equipment. And I called the engineer and I said, let's cut this song, The Streak. And we cut it. First session in that studio, first thing that was ever cut in this new little studio that cost $380 to build. And it was The Streak. And
But it wasn't the first record of The Streak.
no, everybody else had jumped on the idea too. There were at least a dozen streaking records on the market by the time I could get mine out. But mine was the one that made it.
Any idea why?
I think it was a far superior recording.
Well, I looked this up too this morning. In 1974 at the Academy Awards, David Niven was on stage, and can you say he got struck? Anyway, while he was on stage,
Streaked, yeah.
a guy ran across the stage with nothing on. And David is quoted as saying, "That's the only laugh that man will ever get in his life, by stripping and showing his shortcomings." We have that. By the way, when do people take out a line out of one of your songs and yell at you, trying to get your attention?
Sometimes, yeah.
Like-
Back when The Streak was a hit, they would say, "Yeah, I did," and "Don't look, Ethel."
Yeah, don't look, Ethel.
Another one of my records that gets a lot of yells is "Are You Naked?" from It's Me Again, Margaret.
Well, let's try a little bit of The Streak.
And oh gosh, this is Miss Grundy, the lady I told you about from Standards and Practices, you know?
Say what?
The censor, remember?
Oh, listen, this man will take care of you. You know what to say.
I'll be watching, Mr. Stevenson.
Hello, everyone. This is your Action News reporter with all the news that is news across the nation. On the scene at the supermarket. There seems to have been some disturbance here. Pardon me, sir. Did you see what happened?
Yeah, I did. I was just standing over there by the tomatoes, and here he come, running through the pole beans, through the fruits and veggies, naked as a jaybird. Ethel's over there in the jams, jellies, preserves, and pickles. I hollered over there. I said, "Don't look, Ethel!" She dropped a whole jar of kumquats and fell back into the sweet midget cider. Had us too late, she'd done been incensed.
Here he comes,
Boogie dad, boogie dad,
here he goes,
boogie dad, boogie dad.
and he ain't wearing no clothes.
Oh, yes, they call him the street. Fastest thing on 2 feet. He's just as proud as he can be of his anatomy. He gon' give us a peek. Oh, yes, they call him the street. Likes to show off his physique. If there's an audience to be found, he'll be streaking it round and fighting public critique.
That was an immediate hit, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Just took off overnight.
Wow. Boy, it was unbelievable. There are only so many pressing plants in the United States, and they were all pressing that record, and they all couldn't keep up with the sales. With all the pressing plants putting out product, they still were back ordered.
When you
Love that kind of carrying on. Mercy sakes.
when you set out to be in music and pursue a music career, did you have any idea that you were going to be a comedian?
No.
I mean, you won 9 awards for being funny.
I know, but I've always enjoyed comedy though, and I've always loved to tell jokes, and I just never thought of myself as a comedian, a little bit maybe, but I'm a musician. I'm a piano player and a singer and a songwriter, first and foremost. And when I started performing on the road, I performed with a lot of country entertainers, and country entertainers will drop a joke on you in a minute between songs, and so I kind of picked that up. And most jokes are just to kill time, but so that the guitar player can change a string or something like that, But they got 6. Why can't they play with 5? I mean, come on. But that's how I became.
That
I guess,
surprised
known
you
as
the first time you won Comedian of the Year?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I knew I was nominated, but I didn't think I'd win, but I did. So
You think funny, don't you?
sometimes,
I
yeah.
think to be a comic, you have to think funny.
I think maybe a little bit. I don't know.
There's a funny picture I got in my head. In your book, you relate how your father and grandfather were so quiet. They could sit on the front porch with a glass of tea. Tell me that story.
Well, some Sundays we'd go to my grandparents and have dinner. And dinner was in the middle of the day out in the country. And after dinner, they'd sit on the front porch in those rockers, just like the Cracker Barrel, and not say a word. It was my granddad and my dad and his brother, my uncle. And us kids, we'd, observe that nothing was being said. That's just the way it was.
That was the nature of their character then.
I guess, yeah.
What was your grandfather, what did he do?
Well, he was a farmer, and
Wasn't he a sheriff?
yeah, he was the sheriff of the county, and had a general store on the corner of a dirt road and a barely paved road. But he was a feisty guy.
Anybody else is any of this genetic? Any other singers, musicians, and so forth in your family?
I don't know of any.
So
But
you-
who knows? I mean, the opportunities weren't there to be in the music business back when they came along,
So you sort of broke the mold, didn't you?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I came along at the right time, I think.
Tell me about Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head.
Yeah. I got a call from Hal David. He's a songwriter with Burt Bacharach primarily, and they've written tons of hits. And they'd written a song for a movie, and they wanted me to come out and hear it. And so I flew to L.A. and went to Burt's house, and he played Raindrops for me, and I liked it.
What was
But-
the movie? What was the movie?
Butch Cassidy and the Sundance
Okay.
Kid. But I had just finished recording and spending a lot of time in the studio with a Christopherson song that my good friend Bob Beckham had played me. He had signed Chris not long before that as a writer. Beckham was a publisher. And Chris had turned in 3 songs. And I was a good friend with Bob, and he called me. He said, "You got your pick. Which one of these songs would you like to record? They're all great." And I said, "Well, let me hear them." And he played them, and I said, "You're right, they're all great. I'd love
What
to
were
cut
the
Sunday Morning
songs?
Coming Down."
What were the
Help Me Make It Through the Night, and For the Good Times, and Sunday Morning Coming Down. And I said, "Well, I'll cut Sunday Morning Coming Down. I love that." And so I spent just forever in the studio making the perfect record, And I had just finished that when I got the call to go out and hear this song for the movie with Burt Bacharach. And I was so invested in Sunday Morning Coming Down, and I knew if I took the time to do Raindrops and waited for it to, run the cycle, somebody else would come out with Sunday Morning Coming Down. So I said thank you, and I'll pass. And of course, they gave it to B.J. Thomas, and it was a big hit, and he did a wonderful job, and he's a good friend of mine and a great singer. But, and my record of Sunday Morning Coming Down sold 12. And I figured it out later that I do not have the image that was put forth in the lyric to that song of waking up Sunday morning stoned. You know, it's not my Southern Baptist image, you know.
That was a big hit for Johnny Cash.
Well, it was a hit for Johnny Cash. He doesn't have a problem with singing about prisoners and everything else, you know. But the public is really funny about things like that, I guess. I found out. Meanwhile, it taught me a lesson.
You know, I interviewed Chris Christopherson about 3 years ago, and he brought the song up. And he was so proud of the fact he had heard that you spent $45,000 trying to make that song a hit in the studio.
Yeah.
And he was quite pleased. So you made him happy anyway.
Well, good. Oh, I love Chris Christopherson. He's a wonderful guy.
Did you work a lot with Elvis?
No, only met him the one time, and then later played on that one session with him.
Okay. Now,
A lot of my friends knew him well and worked with him. Yeah.
did you ever record for Chet?
For RCA?
Mm-hmm.
No, I never did. And that's
As close as you
that's
were?
strange, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. I just never worked out.
How would you describe the Nashville sound to someone who had heard about it but didn't know anything about it?
Well, it's simple but precise, and you have to be a great musician to mesh all those sounds like that. And no other location in the whole world was using the combination of instruments and the way they were put together like Nashville.
Do you credit Chet and Owen Bradley for that?
Yeah, I do.
They fathered the Nashville sound.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they did.
You probably upset a few people in the world of jazz when you cut Misty. Why did you cut it the way you did?
It was an accident. We were in the studio. I say we, my road band and I were in my little studio, same place I cut The Streak.
Had you ever heard Johnny Mathis?
Oh, of course, yeah. Everybody heard Johnny Mathis sing Misty. But anyway, we were in there rehearsing for a TV show we were going to do the next day. And during a break in the rehearsal, we started clowning around with Misty with a banjo and a fiddle and a steel because it was so weird to do it that way. We weren't making fun of the song. I love the song, but we were just having fun with it. Look at me, yee-haw. And it started sounding good. I mean, I'm thinking to myself, doggone, this thing could be a hit. So I called the engineer. He was home. And I said, get in here. We're going to cut something. And so he came in, and we cut it in 2 takes and overdubbed the background voices, and it came out, and everybody agreed with me.
Did you have any jazz aficionados that got on your case about that?
Not really. Who's that drummer? Buddy Rich.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was, we were on, Don Light, who recently passed away, a good friend. We were on a plane together, flying to L.A. Buddy Rich, I'm in front of Don, and Buddy Rich is sitting next to Don in the plane. Just so happened. And so Don, he loved to bait people. And he said, have you heard Ray Stevens' record of Misty? And Buddy Rich had no idea I was sitting up front in front of Don, and he said, yeah, and he ought to be killed. I didn't turn around.
We have a strange version of that song that these people might not have seen. It's as a cartoon character.
Oh, okay.
So let's take a look at Misty.
Look at me, I'm as helpless as a kitten up a tree now. Oh, I'm walking on a cloud, I can't understand all. I'm Misty, holding your hand. my way, and 1,000 violins begin to play. Or it might be the sound of your hello, that music I hear now. I miss the moment you're near. You can say that you're leading me on, but it's just what I want you to do. Don't you notice how hopelessly I'm lost? That's why I'm following you. Should have wandered through this wonderland alone. Never known the right foot from the left, my hat from my glove. I missed it too much in love.
Who's the cartoonist?
Randy Colors. He's a old friend of mine. Used to play drums in the road band and worked with me at the office for years. He's retired now. Great, talented cartoonist.
I think we ought to reveal I guess it's a secret, but it is your idea to take a bunch of songs and perform with the Nashville Symphony in this style, isn't it?
Well, I don't know if the symphony's going to go for it, but ever since I had the success with Misty, I've wanted to do songs in a bluegrass style that people would never expect to hear done that way. And so I put together an album of songs. One of the songs, to give you an example, is MacArthur Park with a banjo. And I did the album, and then I thought, these would really be different if I overdubbed a symphony sound. So I got a lot of strings and French horns and timpanis and stuff like that, and worked on the thing in the studio, and it sounds like a bluegrass band playing in front of a symphony with these songs. And I approached the symphony with the idea, but so far I hadn't heard back from them.
Okay, I'd buy a ticket to see that. Have we run out of time? I'm getting yes, no, yes.
No, we haven't.
What? Oh, take as long as I need. Do you work here? I've got to get to the another major hit, and that's the Shriners Convention. How'd that happen?
We were in Atlanta doing a show, and we had booked the hotel room months before. And so after the show, we went back to the motel. Actually, it was one of those giant motels. And we're going to get a good night's sleep, get up early the next morning, catch a plane, go to another town, do another show. The Shriners, unbeknownst to us, were headquartering in our motel for a convention in Atlanta. And our sleep was not on their agenda. They had such a great time, and at one point I looked out in my room, and there was a motorcycle in the swimming pool. And so got a little sleep and got up and got out of there the next day and made it back to Nashville a few days later, and called some friends of mine here in that town who are Shriners, and I got a little bit of the nomenclature of words that only Shriners use, and wrote the song, and sure enough, it turns out a lot of people have the same impression of Shriners that I do.
Well, but you cleared this with the Shrine, didn't you?
Oh yeah, they are this great bunch of guys. You think they care? Yeah, no. They loved it. They loved it.
Wasn't this another instant hit?
It wasn't, I don't know. Tell you the truth, it could have been. I'm not sure.
I think it was an overnight success. You've been very fortunate to have a bunch of those.
I was on RCA with that.
Were you?
Yes, but Chet was no longer there.
So I guess Jerry Bradley.
Jerry Bradley, right.
Well, anyway, this record, if you had the record, it's 5 minutes and 10 seconds long. We're going to give you about 2 minutes and 15 seconds of it, okay?
Shriners?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, they're coming down Main Street, drums are flailing and sirens are wailing, what a roar. Bands are playing, flags are waving, vanguards and motorcycle corps. Clowns are reclining to the crowd and pinching every pretty girl who dares to smile. It's a glorious mess, everybody wears a fez, the parade stretches out for a mile. It's a typical American phenomenon where all the members have a fine old time. It's the 43rd Annual Convention of the Grand Mystic Royal Order of the Nobles of the Alibaba Temple of the Shrine. Hello, operator. Give me room 321, please. Thank you. Hello, Noble Lumpkin. This here is the Luster's Potentate. I said it's the Luster's Potentate. The Luster's... Coy, Dad, blame it this bubble. Boy, why wasn't you at the parade? What? Well, how'd you get that big Harley up there in your room? What? I can't hear you, Coy. Quit revving it up, son. Turn it off. Listen, I just want you to know one thing. You have embarrassed us all, the whole Hayhira delegation. Now, I'll see you at the banquet tonight, son, and you be there, Coy. You hear me? Black tie, 7 o'clock. Be there. And, Coy, don't answer the phone, Udden. Oh, mercy. Well, it was all arranged by the ladies' auxiliary in the downtown convention hall. Cold roast beef, string beans, mashed potatoes, and 9 boring speeches and all. And all the tables looked fine with the Moke and David wine and chrysanthemums on each side. And the Hayhira leaders in the rented tuxedos made the local heart swell with pride. It's a typical American phenomenon where all the members have a fine old time. It's the 43rd Annual Convention of the Grand Mystic Royal Order of the Nobles of the Alibaba Temple of the Shrine.
When you first played this for the Shriners, were you a little shaky?
I don't think so.
I mean, did you worry that they might not like this?
No.
Didn't you give them the motorcycle?
Yeah. I bought the motorcycle. A friend of mine found those motorcycles. All the Shriners had one, the blue and white, and they were hogs. I mean, they had all the stuff. And one of them became available to buy, so I bought it and used it on stage. And I would ride it on stage and sing the song. And when I stopped using that as a prop, I gave it to the Almena Temple here in Nashville. They've got it in their lobby, I think.
That video we just watched, that was the Nashville Christmas parade, wasn't it?
I don't know.
I think it was down the streets of Nashville.
Oh, yeah, it was on Broadway.
Yeah, it looked like Broadway.
Yeah.
There are 2 songs that you met a kid named Lang Martin. He made you a lot of money, didn't he?
Well, yeah.
And
Bless his heart. I don't know if he's here today, but he's a great guy.
sing it, Rub It In. He wrote this song.
Let's see. Lay beside me on the sand. Put some lotion on your hand. Treat me real nice. Whisper in my ear. Say the words I want to hear. Da 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 da. And rub it in, rub it in. Rub it in, rub it in. Feel the tingle begin. You're getting under my skin. Rub it in, rub it in.
What happened to that song?
Well, it was a hit by Billy Crash Craddock. And then
Johnson and Johnson.
Johnson and S.C. Johnson is the name of the company. They put out a product, room deodorizer. You plug them in the wall, and you've seen the ads on TV probably. And they used Rub It In as their
As a what?
commercial.
I mean, what was the problem?
Plug it in, plug it in, plug it in.
Okay. But they used that for a long time.
12 years they used it.
Wow.
With escalation clauses every year.
Another song Lang Martin wrote, I guess the timing just happened. But this song was out when Elvis died.
It was Elvis's single when he died, Way Down. And
it was
very...
It became a big hit.
Oh, yeah, because there's so many Elvis fans out there, and since this was his last record, why, song was very important.
Sing a little bit of that
Let's
one.
see. I'll sing the chorus. Way down where the music plays. Way down like a tidal wave. Way down, da, 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 way down. J.D. Sumner did the way down, and of course,
Yeah, he had that.
I'm not J.D. Sumner.
He had that voice that would just go to the bottom of the barrel.
He's a great gospel bass singer. Most of you people know that, but for those of you who might not, he was real low.
I want to thank my wife, Joy, for helping me put this together.
Yeah.
She helped me do the research. Turn it up, Joy. On page 215, near the end of the book, is a story about the Nashville Breakfast Club, and you'll have to read the book to find out all about that. I'm part of that, and I'm glad to be a part. In the last paragraph of the book, Ray writes, "For me, Nashville is all I ever dreamed it would be and far more. Ray Stevens' Nashville is a quilt of great relationships and experiences that are uniquely mine." Ray, congratulations on a hit book.
Thank you, Ralph.